Chapter 3. Police Brutality. Crime in the United States has increased nearly 8 times faster than the population explosion. To meet this outbreak of violence and lawlessness, civil order can only be deterred by the enforcement of our local police forces. However, the judicial courts have been gradually circumscribing and infringing upon the controls and jurisdiction of the police officers. Arresting criminals has become increasingly difficult for police. Added to the increased controls and handcuffs that are placed on the law officer, he has become the target of violent attacks of violence and a verbal barrage of charges from a certain group of protectors. U.S. Representative Brutality of California affirmed this view. Civil disobedience and violence have assumed crisis proportions in our land, and the time has come to call a spade a spade. Recent riots in many of our great cities are not just legitimate protests by civil rights advocates. They are not just spontaneous expressions of hopelessness or frustration on the part of disadvantaged slum dwellers. Rather, they are all too often conscious, planned attacks on the very fabric of our society, perpetrated by lawless insurrectionists who thrive on turmoil and discord. Such elements key their actions to minor involvements of citizens with the police over traffic violations, domestic problems, fire hydrants, and the like. Then they go into action with their bricks, firebombs, and guns to reduce an area to shambles and a neighborhood to fear and trembling. To characterize such behavior a legitimate civil rights activity is patently false. Civilized society has the right, yes, the obligation to itself and to generations yet unborn, to prevent erosion of the rule of law. Even now, many of our cities are jungles where crime of all types flourishes, where physical violence against individuals is an everyday occurrence, a constant threat, even in daylight. I subscribe to the fundamental principle of any stable, democratic society that law must be obeyed and order enforced. Society cannot countenance insurrection while it toils to eliminate ignorance, illness, or poverty. We must respect, cooperate with, and support our local police. We cannot tolerate conduct which does not constitute good citizenship. Riots, like wars, are difficult to explain. Nevertheless, we must cope with these phenomena because they are intolerable. Perhaps there is no one solution, but I propose that we start with the individual and work up, rather than at the federal level, and percolate down. One earns, rather than demands, respect and acceptability. Goals, even worthy goals, obtained by force, fear, or hooliganism, are short-lived and excessively expensive. We cannot obtain worthy goals by unworthy means. Time and energy spent on learning is more profitable than looting. Reading is better than rioting. Work is more satisfactory than welfare. Building is more productive than bombing. Society has an immediate responsibility to put down insurrection, to control mobs, to prevent violence, to secure the peace of a community, to guarantee personal safety, and to protect property. For these important duties, we rely on our policemen. With minor isolated exceptions, they perform superbly. Our system of law enforcement excels any other in the world, in spite of the freedoms accorded our citizens, including hoodlums. The courts recently have leaned over backwards to protect the offender, which makes the job of police officers even more demanding. We who are so competently protected by police officers should reciprocate. We should obey the law as we expect others to do. We should support the police as we expect them to respect us. We should be as quick to applaud good police performance as we are to criticize poor performance. But first, I believe the American people are faced with a grave and fundamental decision, which could determine our future as a nation. Either the rule of law will prevail and sustain us, or the primeval law of the jungle will envelop us. Congressman Burt Talcott, Defender, page 78. The slogan police brutality is not a new one. Wherever a revolution takes place, there is the constant harassment of the police forces. Dr. Stephen Ponsonby, director of the Program of International Political Studies at the Hoover Institute, Stanford University, and a recognized authority on communism, was asked by the U.S. News and World Report about the significance of communist activities in the United States. He replied, "First of all, it is significant that communists are making trouble for the U.S. today. Secondly, it is significant that this is a recruiting operation, training and organizing of communist revolutionaries for the America of tomorrow. The numbers are not large, but numbers do not mean much in this sort of activity. A small number of people can create a great deal of unrest, and organizers are always small in number. Essentially, this whole operation that is going on today is an old communist technique known as revolutionary anti-militarism. Communists have written entire textbooks on this subject. The idea is to make it impossible for the military to function efficiently. The same idea applies to the police or to other vital institutions. The weaker the police, the easier it is for communists to operate. The police brutality slogan has been used by the communists in free countries for many years. The subject is taboo in the Soviet Union or in East Germany, where they don't hesitate to shoot down refugees. If you study the record of past revolutions, you will find in the period just before the revolution of the many phenomena that are occurring in the United States today. The crime rate goes up, for example. In fact, before a revolution you usually have what you might call a crime epidemic. You have loosening sexual morals, loosening family ties. Things that would have raised the roof 20 years earlier are considered perfectly acceptable in a pre-revolutionary period. This is very clearly true in the US today. There will be more charges of police brutality whenever the police make a stand against the riots, demonstrations, or revolutionary activities of the Communist Party. They charge brutality against others when they are interfered with in their use of brutality. Police forces are realizing that the Communist Party hates them, and they will do everything they can to discredit everything that tends to maintain law and order. Police stand for law and order. The Communist Party seeks chaos and anarchy. Only by breaking down police enforcement can communists gain their objectives. With each passing day it is becoming more clear to the average citizen that it is criminal brutality and not police brutality that needs our deepest concern. A special committee of the House of Representatives reported on charges of police brutality. This committee issued report number 2290 on January 17, 1961, in which it stated, "The public should not overlook the fact that the police are human beings and are carrying out orders to resist or break up communist demonstrations when staged in defiance of the law. Often roughhouse tactics prevail and communist women and children insult and spit on the police and scratch and bite them. There has been too much denunciation of the police for alleged brutality by PINKS' in metropolitan papers. The committee believes that the American public owes a debt of gratitude to the police of New York, Chicago, and many other metropolitan centers for affording protection against the lawless and revolutionary activities of the communists, and in safeguarding foreign consulates from insults and mass communist demonstrations." Lyman B. Kirkpatrick, Jr., Inspector General on the staff of the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, during testimony before the Senate Internal Security Subcommittee said, "Let me describe briefly the history of the communist war against the police in one of the major countries of the free world. This particular country has a long history of excellent police service and a law, dating back many years, requiring that the police force be completely divorced from all politics. Further, until the communist politicians started to create trouble in recent years, there had never been an incident on record showing political interference with the administration of the police force. In this particular nation there is a national police force which has 5 levels, but is organized on a national, provincial, and local basis. The communist technique has been directed primarily toward discrediting the police in the eyes of the people. On the local level, communist troublemakers would start fights in public places in order to involve the local police. When the police went into action, the troublemakers linked arms in an effort to show that it was the police who were causing the incident. The communists will exert every effort to prevent the development of a strong police force. The communist attack on the police of the free world is dangerous for 2 reasons. The first is that the attacks are fanatical, disciplined, and skilled in underground methods. The second, a campaign against the police of one free country is not planned and directed by the Communist Party of that country, it is planned and directed by the strategists of international communism. June 13, 1961. 1. Edgar Hoover warned citizens of police review boards. These panels would consist of appointed individuals who are inexperienced and uninformed in law enforcement and police administration. This drive for external boards is an ill-advised maneuver. Law Enforcement Bulletin, FBI, January 1965. Such a board, with unfriendly motives, could harass a police officer and cause suspension or relieve him of his job. Every arrest by an officer could mean a special review, to which he would have to answer any charges by a criminal. Thomas J. Gibbons, former police commissioner of Philadelphia, said concerning one of these review boards, "In 1953 we had 2,000 applicants for police recruits and accepted 1,000. In 1960 things have changed. Hardly anybody wants to be a policeman in my city. Saturday Evening Post, July 9, 1960. The police are our guardians of freedom and therefore are among the first to become the major target of the communists. The more effective the police force, the more vital it is for the communists to destroy it. There is an immediate clash between the police and the communists, and the police become some of the first to learn that the Communist Party is not just another political party, but an international conspiracy. Police are the custodians of freedom for the American citizen. They are the vanguards against the most highly organized band of criminals ever known, the International Communist Party. In 1968 there were 15.8 assaults on police for every 100 officers in this country. This means that 1 of every 7 policemen is being attacked every 12 months. And the horrible part is that the number of assaults on the police increases with each year. The police are being bombarded with rocks, bottles, and bricks shot at from rooftops, and often hospitalized by wounds from clubs, spikes and meat hooks. There are altogether far too many police horribly murdered while in the line of duty while protecting the average citizen, you and me. Policeman. A policeman is many things. He's a son, a brother, a father, an uncle, and sometimes even a grandfather. He is a protector in time of need and a comforter in time of sorrow. His job calls for him to be a diplomat, a psychologist, a lawyer, a friend, and an inspiration. He suffers from an overdose of publicity about brutality and dishonesty. He suffers far more from the notoriety produced by unfounded charges. Too often, sets of heroism go unnoticed, and the truth is buried under all the criticism. The fact is that less than 0.5% of policemen ever discredit their uniform. That's a better average than you'll find among clergymen. A policeman is an ordinary guy who is called upon for extraordinary bravery for us. His job may sometimes seem routine, but the interruptions can be moments of stark terror. He's the man who faces a half-crazed gunman, who rescues a lost child, who challenges a mob, and who risks his neck more often than we realize. He deserves our respect and our profound thanks. A policeman stands between the law-abider and the lawbreaker. He's the prime reason your home hasn't been burned, your family abused, your business looted. Try to imagine what might happen if there were no policemen around, and then try to think of ways to make their job more rewarding. Show them the respect you really have, offer them a smile and a kind word, see that they don't have to be magicians to raise their families on less than adequate salaries. We think policemen are great. We thank God for all the little boys who said they would be policemen and who kept their promise. We hope you feel the same way, and we hope you'll show it so there will always be enough good policemen to go around.